You're listening to a DM podcast.
Hello and welcome to Sportish, where we look at life through the lens of sport. My name is Georgie Trickett.
And I'm Libby Trickett.
And Lib, this is the last episode of our series.
I know, I'm so bummed.
I know, because it's been incredible to meet and experience sport with these amazing para-athletes and people involved in the management of para-sport in Australia.
Yeah, and really kind of understanding people's different experiences. I think that's the thing that I've really loved throughout this whole series, is just understanding people's life and what they've been through and the challenges that they face, how they've overcome different elements of that, and of course the thread connection of sport and how much that has supported them through it as well.
Always. And this is a conversation that we had really hoped to bring to everyone earlier, but for a number of reasons we just couldn't make it work. And actually, that's something we're going to talk about later in the episode.
Yeah, this is a really exciting episode this week. In the studio, we have Australian two-time para-equestrian rider Emma Booth. Emma, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, guys. It's great to be here and see both of your faces. So, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Emma, I have to declare that in our household, we refer to dressage as horse dancing, and it is absolutely one of our most favourite events at the Olympics and Paralympic Games. We all sit around the TV, we watch it with absolute fascination and delight. What was it that actually drew you into a sport like dressage?
Well, first of all, I love the horse dancing because that's always one that I use whenever anyone's like, what sport do you do? And I'm like, you know, the one in the sand pit where the horses dance? That's what I do.
That's so
so that's great. And yeah, in terms of what got me into dressage, so I've always been a animal obsessed, horse obsessed kid. And this is a funny story, but when I was 11, I actually won a pony. I don't know if you...
That's
amazing.
amazing.
I don't know if you remember the TV show The Saddle Club?
Yeah.
Yes. The stuff of girl dreams.
Yeah, especially an 11-year-old horse-obsessed little girl that her parents weren't horsey and wouldn't buy her a pony.
Outrageous.
Yeah, I know, rude. But the Saddle Club ran a competition to win a pony for 12 months, and out of 40,000 kids or something, I was lucky enough to win. And so that's sort of where my riding career started, with my little pony called Scruffy.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Emma.
It's, again, one of those things where you just, I don't know, fate or what, like, not to sound lame, but yeah. One of those
Not
things
lame.
that you
Love
think,
the woo-woo.
Yeah,
Absolutely all about it.
It played out how it was supposed to. So that started my riding career. And after I started riding, I was an eventer. So the discipline is dressage, show jumping, and cross country. And I loved that. That was my passion, absolutely obsessed. And I moved through the levels pretty quickly as a young rider. But then after my accident in 2013, I got back into riding, but the focus was then shifted to straight dressage, because jumping as a para, probably not that doable, probably not the safest option. And, whereas, the dressage side of things, that's where the focus went. And yeah, I absolutely love it. I love the intricacy. I love the, the way that you have to build a relationship with the horse, the communication that's there through body and non-verbal communication. It's a tricky sport, and I love that about it.
Speaking about that connection with your horse, what is that like? Can you tell us about the horse that you have now, that you work with, and that connection and relationship and trust that you have to build with these animals? Because I'm really fascinated, because there's so much. They talk about equine therapy a lot in, mental health and addictions and things like that. What is that connection with a horse like, and how do you establish it? How do you build on it?
Yeah, well, I think I'll probably talk about the horse that took me to the 2 Paralympic Games and a World Championship. So his name was Zidane. And he came into my life after my accident. So again, another sort of sidetrack, but a family friend of mine rode his bike around Australia after my accident to raise money to be able to allow me to purchase a horse of, Paralympic quality, because horses of that, caliber, they're not cheap. So that's just another side piece of my story. But yeah, amazing. And the people that got on board to support that, it was huge. But yeah, because of that, I was able to purchase this horse, Zidane, and he, you spoke of equine therapy, Libby, and he absolutely, for me, as much as he was the horse that got me on teams, he was the horse that after my accident completely got my life back on track. He did for me, I think, what no human or person could have done. Like, he just, he allowed me to achieve goals, but the connection that we had, like, he was just one of those horses that will forever have a place in my heart. And, he just changed my life. And I think, the relationship that you build, it's so important, and the trust that's there, because again, I think even more as a para rider, without that trust, you're not able to then fully give yourself physically as a para rider to ride the best that you can, or give the test 110%, because if you have any sort of little bit of doubt or reservation there in terms of your safety or the trust that you have, you're not going to achieve the same outcome as, if you completely trust the horse like I did Zidane, you can just completely give yourself over and give every ride 110, 120%. So yeah, it does take a bit of time to build, but at the same time, it can be built very quickly. Like with Zidane, I think within the first 5 minutes of my first ride on him, it was like, this is the horse we've been looking for, 100%. It was just no doubt in my mind that he was the right horse, because he had never had a para rider on him, but he just absolutely, it's like I say this all the time, and again, it might sound a bit cliche, but he genuinely, I feel, could sometimes read my mind. Like he would do something that I was thinking before I'd even got to the point of, asking in some way. So he was incredible. So yeah.
Emma, if you're comfortable, it'd be really good to go back to what happened in 2013 and how that changed the course of not only your sporting career, but your life as you knew it.
Yeah, so 2013, like for those that don't know, I was coming home from a horse competition with a friend. We were coming back from Albury and had 2 horses on the float behind us. And it was just one of those wrong place, wrong time situations, and we were involved in a really serious car accident in which a truck jackknifed onto the wrong side of the road. And yeah, we had a head-on collision, and the damage was just beyond anything. Like I look back at photos and things of the damage that was caused, and I genuinely still to this day, I'm like, I don't know how we got out of that situation alive, to be honest. It was horrific. Like, unfortunately, both of the horses were killed in the accident. There was a lady traveling in a van behind our vehicle, and the truck jackknifed in such a way that we had a head on, but then the trailer kept spinning, I suppose, and she was also involved in the accident, and unfortunately she passed away. So, it was awful, and, the extent of my injuries was just head to toe. I had life-saving abdominal surgery to stop internal bleeding, and I had a knock to the head and a fractured skull, a bleed on the brain, which I still I'm super grateful that, I don't have an acquired brain injury, my most long-lasting injury from the accident was the damage to my spine and spinal cord. Now an L2 paraplegic. So the adjustment to life after that was huge, but then also, as you said, with my sport in particular, that transition of, I had such a passion and love for eventing, and the cross country was probably my favorite element of the sport. So to then transition and change that whole outlook, you know, it was a challenge for sure, but again, one that I wouldn't change, because where my journey has led me and the things that I've been able to do, the people that I've been able to meet, and, you know, the challenges I think that I've overcome have really shaped who I am. And, you know, like there's a lot of difficult things in there, and I think that, but it ultimately, it makes you stronger. And I'd like to think that I am today because of all of those things.
It's such a beautiful perspective to have. And I think sometimes within those conversations where it's like those difficult moments shape you and create you and, you know, are so important, but there is still challenges that you experience day to day because of that traumatic experience, whatever it might be in your world. You're obviously so incredibly strong and passionate still about horse riding and being a para-equestrian athlete. Was there ever a doubt in your mind that you'd be able to get back there, or what was it that kind of kept you going to keep pushing forward for something that you love so much? But, you know, a lot of people would have been like, oh, well, that's it then. No more riding for me.
Yeah. I think that it's, again, one of those funny things, like after my accident, it was probably only 2 weeks after my accident that I started looking into para dressage and para equestrian. And that's when I saw that the next Paralympics was going to be in Rio in 2016. And so it was super soon after my accident. And, you know, mum and dad came to see me that night after I'd been doing all this investigating. And it was one of those conversations I'll never forget, because they just came in and they're like, oh, how was your day? And I was like, yeah, good. How was your day? Yeah, not too bad. And they're like, oh, what'd you get up to? And I said, oh, well, just so you guys know, like, I'm not going to be an eventer anymore. I'm now going to be a para dressage rider. I think I'm probably going to be classified as a grade 2, and I'm going to go to the Paralympics in Rio in 2016.
And just FYI, just a little heads up.
I just did some work today. I've mapped out my life.
I love that.
Yeah. So it was very early on, and to be honest, at that point, it was probably a dream goal. You know, like I don't even think that at that point it was the reality was that, oh, you know, I might actually go to the games. But just in saying those words and putting it out there, that's what I think ultimately it led to, you know, the steps that ultimately led to me to the game. So because I put that out there, obviously then the goal became, okay, well, I'm going to get back in the saddle. So to answer the question, it wasn't really a question of if, it was just when. So for me, 3 months after my accident, I was harassing my spinal surgeon, John Cunningham, who's incredible, by the way. You know, can I ride yet? When can I get back in the saddle? And he was like, Emma, you like, look at your injuries from only 3 months ago. He was like, we need to just woo on this for a minute.
Just woo up.
You know, yeah, woo, half halt. That's a horse term. He just said, yeah, look, we need to give the you know, we've put an extensive amount of metal hardware into your back, and we need to give that time to fuse and heal before you go bouncing around on a horse. So he made me wait until the 6 month mark, and literally like to the day I had an appointment with him. And yeah, it was like, okay, can you have a look at the scans? What's going on? Are we all good? And he gave me the tick of approval. So again, I had a huge support network, some amazing people that helped me in that regard of getting back into the saddle. And then, yeah, from there, because I think I'd said the words about Rio, that's when my family friend, Glenn Carter, started to plan, okay, well, Emma's going to need some funds to be able to achieve that goal. Let's ride my bike around Australia. So, yeah, I think setting myself that goal is ultimately what kept me motivated and what pushed me, really made me push the limits every day. Like even when I was in rehab, initially, so my accident was in April of 2013. And because of the extent of my injuries, when I first got to hospital, they said, look, to my mum and dad, the likelihood that she'll be home for Christmas is very low. Like, don't get your hopes up that she'll be home for Christmas, basically. So that was in April. And I think because I just absolutely, one, I was young and fairly fit before my accident, so that helped. That's one element, but also the fact that I set myself goals. I got up every day, did all the exercise physiology, physio, everything that I possibly could to just give myself the best chance of a speedy recovery. I was actually discharged in middle of July. So probably, nearly 6 months prior to what they had originally thought. And I was back in the saddle in October. So again, before they even originally thought my discharge date would be.
I think it's amazing the mindset that you have where you've just said, this is what I'm going to do and I'll get it done. And you actually, interestingly, and I'm not sure if you are aware of it, but you talk about it as recovery, even though you now are at this point a paraplegic. The terminology you use when you're discussing it is that you've recovered. Do you think like that's part of your mindset and how you approach so many aspects of your life?
Definitely, actually. And it's funny because I think before you've said that, I've never had it put to me in that way. So that's a question that really makes me reflect and go, actually, yeah, that's probably a big part of it. I think it's not as though I had a mindset of, okay, what can I do to get back to where I was before my accident? It was probably that adjusting to my new normal, which was, being a paraplegic in a wheelchair, and adjusting to the limitations that I then had, and I guess making the most of each of those situations. Like, there's obviously a lot of things that I can't do now physically. And I think prior to my accident, I was a really independent person. I never really asked for help. Like, I was one of those people that just, I'm going to do this. So I didn't really ask for help. And after my accident, I had to reassess that, and I was sort of pushed to a point that I didn't have a choice, that I had to learn that it's okay to ask for help. And really, I think that it's always a collaboration of effort of people. Like, nobody ever achieves anything on their own. It's the support that you have. It's always a support network. So that's for every element of life. But I think that I don't know, I guess, set that mindset of, okay, I can't do these things, but these are things that I can do.
My therapist calls it hyper independence. It's a whole thing. That we experience. So what was that like then, having to then really force yourself? I mean, I guess you're at a point where you have no other choice, but what was it like to have to start to ask for help for you? And were there moments with people around you where maybe they weren't so helpful and you might have lost friends or family because they didn't want to be part of that?
It was challenging, for sure. It was, and still is, that's one of those things that it's still challenging sometimes. When, I talk about it 12 years ago after my accident, that was challenging, but it still is today. There's certain things that I go, I just want to do this, but I need to wait until somebody gets here and ask them to, help me do whatever it is that I need to do. Definitely challenging, definitely frustrating. Frustration is probably a word that, even with after my accident and learning to ride again, there's, it's not all, I guess the picture can be painted as, it's all, look how amazing it was after the accident. You got back in the saddle and you made the team and it was all this, sunshine and rainbows. Like, absolutely not. There were moments of, rides where after my accident, I was in the saddle, and because I had the knowledge of riding before my accident, afterwards going, I know what I want my body to do and I physically can't do it. Like, the moments of frustration that I had with that were like, you can't really put it into words, because again, it's that struggle between mind and body, huge. But again, I think it was just a matter of each time reflecting on, okay, this ride didn't go great today, or you felt this way today, but, ultimately we're still step by step getting closer to, it becoming easier, or, getting closer to the goal that you've set. So there's definitely moments of frustration. But I think it's, again, just sometimes allowing yourself to feel that, allowing yourself to feel, okay, that's okay. You're going to experience that sometimes, but now you need to let that go and move forward, and let's look at the things that, in a more, I guess, positive way.
I think actually you just touched on something as well about that this is like an ongoing issue. It's not that you have the accident and you become a paraplegic and then, we move on with life. This is an ongoing issue that requires ongoing management. And in fact, that was part of the reason why it's been so tricky for us to talk to you, is because even at the moment you're experiencing significant pain and having to manage that pain in a really intensive way. What's it like to be an athlete who's performing on world stages and going to, huge events and performing under that level of pressure, but at the same time, you're trying to manage a really big part of your life, and pain is so pervasive to so many things. And it's not like you can just go, oh, well, I've got this event, so I just need to focus.
Shut off the pain.
Yeah, just pain go away. Like, this is something that I think for para-athletes, we often forget that it's more than just this has happened to you and now you move into a career of sport. There's an ongoing issue that you're all dealing with on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, it's managing it on a day-to-day, but you made a team, so we're at the Paralympic Village, and when your events are, and you're at the pinnacle of your sport and ready to perform on the world stage for your country, representing Australia. But your body doesn't just stop all the ongoing underlying issues that have always been there, the day before, so that you can go in ready to perform. That's a huge part of management as a para-athlete going into any local competition, any international competition, any games. Like, the unpredictability of your body, I think, is something that's a real challenge and something that you really have to navigate, because again, the night before you're ready to perform, you might have an amazing night's sleep and it might all go to plan and it be amazing and easy and great. But it also might not. And it might mean that, the night before your competition, you're up until 4 a.m. with excruciating nerve pain. You've not had anywhere near enough sleep. And, like Libby, you'd understand how much they talk about sleep as an athlete being such an important part of recovery, and it's so important, but sometimes that's you don't get that as an option, and so you just have to dig deep, manage the best you can, and again, relying on the people around you, talking to them throughout the preparation. So I think if you have a really great support system leading in, knowing who your people are for what things you need and all that sort of stuff, and utilizing that when you're about to compete, going, right, guys, this was my night last night and this is what we need to do today to be able to get us in the saddle at this time. But there's so many elements, I think, as a para athlete that we navigate on a day-to-day that doesn't stop for when we're ready to perform. And, that's different for every athlete, every able-bodied or para-athlete. But yeah, I think that for us, there's always a lot of things going on, different for each person, that you don't get to see a lot, like there's a lot of that behind the scenes that I think you don't see, because you see here's Emma on the horse in the competition arena.
Look at her horse dancing.
Yeah, look, that's so pretty. That's great.
So pretty.
Yeah, that's the end picture that we see. But I guess, the ups and downs emotionally and physically to get to that point are super challenging. And I think that relates to everybody in everyday life. Like, a lot of the time there are ups and downs for people even if we're not talking about high performance sport, even if we're just talking day to day, you know, there's things that challenges people face on the daily that to look at from an outsider's perspective, you don't know that that's going on. So again, that's part of, you know, something that I always try and think about for other people. You know, like I look at other people and go, oh, they might be having a really bad day. Let's cut them some slack. Like, you know, always being kind and giving people the benefit of the doubt is something that I think is, you know, we should all try and do a bit more of, I guess.
Incredibly undervalued. I think that is such a beautiful perspective that you have. And one of the things that I want to ask a little bit more about is, you know, what you were saying about recognizing where you're at and acknowledging where you're at and talking to those closest to you about that. Because I think a lot of people in their day-to-day lives pretend and you know, don't want to acknowledge exactly where they're at because they're feeling uncomfortable or stressed or overwhelmed or whatever it might be, anxious, depressed. And so we pretend and, you know, distract ourselves in all those sorts of ways. How have you been able to kind of, I guess, establish that thinking and attitude where you go, okay, so I didn't have the best sleep. My body's feeling this much out of 10. You know, how do I kind of lift from there and how do I get the best out of myself as it is right now?
I mean, it's being vulnerable, right? That's something that I still struggle with even today. I still struggle to be vulnerable, especially on a public platform. With my friends and family, my partner, you know, that's one thing where I think it's a really fine line of juggling, because on one side of things, I'm always trying to be this stoic, you know, persevere,
Grateful.
push myself. Yeah. You know, get on with it, that kind of attitude. But that at the same time makes it really difficult to say to, you know, my partner, I'm feeling so this, I have had this amount of sleep in how many weeks and my body is just driving me insane and I'm going insane because of these reasons. You know, I still find it quite difficult to do that, and I'm getting better. I am getting better, and I'm teaching myself to be a bit more vulnerable. But it's the same as I said with, you know, on a public platform, like even my social media side of things, I keep the positive things. I keep it very, these are the good bits. This is what I'm going to show you. I still don't allow myself to really put any of those really vulnerable moments on social media. And I know that I probably should, but I think that it's something that, again, this will be a whole nother discussion, but social media, like people can be really judgmental and
so mean.
Yeah.
Randomly,
Yeah.
for no reason.
For no reason. And it's keyboard warriors, because when you're on social media, you can say whatever you want behind a keyboard because you don't actually have to have that conflict with a person face to face. And it's awful. But I'm very aware of that. So in putting anything sort of vulnerable on social media, I tend to back away from, because I don't want to have to deal with anything that's said, or like that takes a lot of energy in itself to actually put that out there. So yeah, it's a difficult one to balance, I think, and I probably don't have the balance exactly right. But yeah, I think one side of it is, yeah, definitely the people that are in your support network, being vulnerable with them. That was something I'm still working on. I'm still getting the right skills together to be able to do that in the best way possible. But yeah, I've been able to do it enough that I can have them all on board and assist, you know, when I need it. So for example, like leading into comps and games and things like that. Yeah, but it's definitely something that on a day-to-day I still work on, or I'm trying to work on.
Emma, I'd love to talk and understand a bit about the role that coaching is playing in your life at the moment, and actually sort of linking to that vulnerability conversation and about how vulnerability plays a role in that relationship, that coach and I guess participant relationship.
Yeah, it's a good one because definitely, so my coach, I've been working with since before Rio, Lorna, and we have a great relationship in that, you know, we're very professional when we need to be, but then at the same time, we're friends outside of that and we can have a joke and a laugh. And she's very good at doing that in the right moment. So if it's getting a bit too, I don't know, something's getting a bit stuck, or like she'll throw a little joke in and make me laugh when we need to just sort of do a bit of that. But at the same time, so she's actually Danish, but she's lived in Germany for most of her life. So she's very German in her approach and outlook, and, you know, this is how we do it and do it right. And, you know, like she doesn't give you a pat on the back very often. And I would say this to her, like as I said, we have a very good relationship, and it's part of the reason that I love working with her, because you know that if she does give you a little bit of praise or a compliment, you're like, shit, I must be doing something really right.
Yeah,
I've excelled.
So, yeah. And she pushes me in the best way possible. So even if I'm going, Lorna, you know, this is really hard, or whatever it might be, part of the reason I love working with her is because she doesn't coach me like a para rider. She just coaches me like a rider. And that's it's a tricky one too, because I love that, but sometimes I'm like, Lorna, I'm a para, like you need to look at it that way, but she doesn't. So it's a funny one in my brain, because half of the time I love that about her, and the other half of the time sometimes you're just going, Lorna, could you give me a little bit of a break because of this? But anyway, she's great, and the relationship there I think is super important, because if you can't have those open, honest conversations with your coach, then you're not on the same page. They don't know what you're thinking. You don't know what they're thinking, and you can't plan and aim for, you know, performing to your best ability possible.
I wanted to ask what your advice would be for like young para athletes who might be looking to get into para equestrian, or, you know, or just, you know, sport in general. What is it something that you would recommend? Is it something that you think is of value to those young people who might be coming through or facing some difficult circumstances with their own health and well-being?
Absolutely. Yeah. To answer the question, yes. 100 times. If getting into sport as a para, particularly as a para, again, this is probably just from my experience, but it has just allowed me to be a part of a community, to feel included, to have purpose, have meaning to life, but on a daily basis, to just have a sense of enjoyment and doing something that you love. So finding something that you enjoy, and it, you know, something that you can, like learning new skills, it's such a great challenge. And, you know, if I think you can do that in sport, it teaches you so much about day-to-day life as well. I think staying physically active is also extremely important for everybody. But yeah, as a para, if there's some way that you can be involved in a sport and allow yourself to be physically active, however many days a week it might be, you know, it's not rocket science. Like staying physically active releases endorphins. It's going to help with your mental health as well. So yeah, I think there's such a positive, so many positives that can come from being involved in a sport, that outweighs any of the challenges maybe involved in getting into that sport. But creating opportunities for people to be involved in a sport like that is something that I think, we should do more of. And I want to try and advocate more for that too. I think that's something now, you know, 12 years on after my accident, that's something that I should be doing more of. And again, part of the reason like why I'm on this podcast and talking with you guys, so that we can talk about it and go, how do we make it easier for people to get into these things? Because again, I was really lucky in getting into para after my accident, that my coach at the time So before my accident, she was really good friends with a lady called Julia Badams, who she was involved in the high performance team for the London Paralympic Games and had done a lot with para equestrian up until that point. And because they were friends, Sam introduced me to Julia, and then Julia just took me under her wing, and that's where I had my first ride back in the saddle after my accident, was with Julia. And yeah, like it was one of those things that I go, and she lived, again, it was one of those, she lived 5 minutes around the corner. So, Australia is this enormous place, and the one person that was involved in high performance at the games prior lived 5 minutes from me. So
cool.
I was
nice.
It's really cool, but I feel really lucky. Like I was so lucky. And that is what led me to then competing overseas in England a year later, like a year after my accident, on the team for Hartbury and then on the team for the Paralympics in Rio. But I think I do think a little bit of that was luck, because had I not got involved with her, would I have been able to navigate the system and getting into the high performance sport as a para athlete? I'm not sure. So she's now created this amazing program, which is Equine Pathways Australia, and it's basically that. It's a way for grassroots riders to get involved in the sport and move slowly up the levels, and it's a pathway, which is why she calls it Equine Pathways, to get from that, starting out where that lower level, I suppose, and moving up to the high performance, making it to a Paralympics, and she paves the way for that to happen. So her program in itself is now an amazing thing that's happening in Australia for para riders. But, I still have people messaging me saying, my son this has happened, or he has this, and he's really wanting to get into sport. Do you know how we can go about it? And, I'll point them in the direction of Julia's program straight away, or RDA. But yeah, I think opening all of those avenues and talking about it and making it the public aware, it can only help, because the more people we can get involved and the easier we can make it for them to get involved, the more likely that they will. So, yeah.
Emma, you were so close to competing in Paris last year. You were in Europe. You've had found a new beautiful horse. You had completed in some of the warm-up events, and it just didn't turn out the way you had hoped. Is LA 28 on your dance card, and is that what you'll be aiming for?
What are your goals?
Yeah, where to next for Emma Booth?
Yeah. So the Paris campaign was extremely, extremely challenging, like probably one of the hardest campaigns that I've had. So I've only fallen off a horse twice since my accident. Once was very early on after I started riding again. And the second time was during my campaign for Paris. And it was a bad fall. Like, I didn't do it delicately. I made a good go of it. I hit the deck really hard, and I shattered my pelvis and had lots of broken bones. And then luckily I went to the AIS in Italy and did a bit of rehab there. But then I was in the competition arena at my first qualifier probably 4 weeks after my fall. So had not had enough time for anything to heal. Like, the amount of pain that I was in riding, and like it was so challenging. And the horse that I had over there, it was a new partnership, so we really hadn't had the time to get that bond. Like, in that 4 weeks of recovery, I wasn't riding, and so I jumped on literally the day before my event after not having ridden him basically at all. Anyway, the point is that that was super hard. I didn't make the team, but even that, I still learned a lot. I loved the journey. We were still named as the reserve rider, or one of the reserve riders. So that in itself, I think, given everything that was thrown at us last year, was still an accomplishment. So
seems so.
And I think my whole thing when I went, because I campaigned from Europe last year, and my whole outlook in going over there was, I want to come back from Europe knowing that I've given it my absolute all, given it everything that I possibly can to try and make the team for Paris. Not have a fear of failure, just give it a crack and whatever happens, happens. And even though I didn't make the team, I definitely thought, you know what, I can come back going. I did what I set out to do. I gave it my absolute all. I gave it everything I possibly could and more. And, we didn't make the team, but that's okay. And, a few of my really good friends were actually on the team for Paris, and getting to watch them and see them, that it was both of their first Paralympic Games. So seeing them be able to do that was awesome. And I loved that.
Where to now for Emma Booth?
Where to now? Sorry, that was a long way of getting there. But
no,
yes.
It was incredible.
The goal will be, we've actually just purchased a new horse, and I'm most likely going to have some more spinal surgery in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to mean a sort of 6-month recovery, but I'm still aiming to try and get the qualifiers done for the World Championships next year. And then that I'm hoping will be a stepping stone to LA in 2028. And then the ultimate goal would be, to be able to compete at a home games in Brisbane 2032.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be the ultimate, that would be great. And then I've promised my partner that I'll retire after that. So,
and then he's like, and we're done.
We're done.
That's it, right?
Yeah, that's it.
That's incredible. Like, I love the way that you're looking at it. And it's like, yes, the ultimate goal, what we're working towards is, a home games. That would be incredible. But like, there's steps between here and now that you have to get through. Like, I love that perspective. It's such a joy to hear, like, obviously not a joy to hear that you have to go and have surgery and go through those experiences, but I love the big, huge, lofty goal, and then just breaking it down into those little steps. That's really
excited.
Gets me fired up. I love it.
Oh, honestly, that's like something that I really push, in terms of goal setting. But I think the other thing I'm actually really, I'm in a really tricky spot at the moment, because I have this upcoming surgery, and that is scaring the shit out of me. And, it's nothing that you ever want to do, and it's, but I'll do that. But I'm also just in a really comfortable place of, my ultimate goal would be to compete at a home games in Brisbane 2032. If LA is on the way, great. But I also think that I'm so comfortable right now in just doing it for the joy of doing it as well, and knowing that, like, I've done now my 2 games. I've had these amazing experiences. If I never get on a team again, that's not the be all and end all. Like, I've still got so many other aspects of life going for me now that I also want to put a lot of my focus on. And yeah, I think that being in that comfortable place is also just, it's taken me a while to get here. Because, you, as a high performance athlete, you put so much pressure on achieving these things. And if you don't achieve that, well, like, you put so much emphasis on it. And I think, it's taken me a while to kind of just go, you've done some pretty awesome stuff. I've met some amazing people. I'm still can be involved in a number of other ways. I still have these huge goals. And yes, I've got to figure out the stepping stones to get there, but just being comfortable in that, just enjoy it, have fun. And whatever happens, happens kind of thing.
That's an incredible perspective to have while you're still in it and doing it.
Yeah.
It's just, I wish I could have had that attitude and perspective, because it's a really powerful place to move from.
Yeah, and I think it's, equestrian sports, obviously you have the ability to compete probably a little bit longer than other sports. So for that, I'm really lucky, because again, it's meant that I've had 12 years already of high performance para sport under my belt, and now I can use that to move forward for the next however many years. So I definitely think that, in my sport, that's something that, it's great to be able to have that time of learn from what you've done, use that moving forward. Whereas I guess, obviously in other sports, it's probably a shorter time frame of you've got to do this now. So I'm grateful for that, but as I said, it's taken me a while to get to this place. And yeah, now I'm just enjoying it and, again, wanting to do more of this, of, pushing parasport, getting the grassroots up and running, especially for equestrian, but for all sports and, promoting that on a public platform in any way that I can.
Emma, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in our studio today. Thank you so much for all the vulnerability that you have shared with us today and for putting yourself out there and having this conversation. Like you said, if it can help more kids who want to get into parasport find their pathways, then it's the most important conversation that we could have today.
And we just, we send you all our love and best wishes for the recovery ahead. And we hope and pray that we get to see you do some more horse dancing in the future.
Awesome. And thank you guys so much for, one, having me on, but for two, having this little segment of, focus on the parasport, because it is super important and it's, something that I find, I'm really passionate about. So I appreciate you guys doing that. And, I appreciate the conversation because, again, having these vulnerable conversations isn't always easy. So I think you guys are amazing for actually allowing people to feel vulnerable enough to do that with you. And, I hope that this was great. I've enjoyed it. So I genuinely thank you so much for your time.
No,
thank you, Emma.
You're amazing.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Sportish. And thank you to our partners at the Australian Sporting Alliance for People with a Disability for giving us the opportunity to have these really important, fascinating conversations with some of our most incredible athletes, community-based, and for those people who are working in the important area of sport.
Yeah, it's just been eye-opening. It's been incredible. Like the vulnerability across all of the interviews that we've had have just been beautiful. So yes, so proud of this little few episodes that we've done.
Yes, and we hope to do more. You can hear us every Wednesday in all your podcast apps. Please share this episode with a friend.
Like, subscribe.
Do all the things. Follow us so that you get these downloads. You can find us on Instagram at Being Sportish, and we'll be back with you next week.
Okay, bye.
Bye. This episode of Sportish was brought to you by the Australian Sporting Alliance for People with a Disability
and Riding for the Disabled Association of Australia.
We would like to acknowledge and give thanks to the traditional owners of the land we record this podcast on, the Yagara and Turrbal people,
and their continued connection to the land and waterways on which we meet.